Hey, what is going on everybody, and welcome to Fantasia, home of the Melodious. My name's Azallea, and today, gonna be bringing you guys another update to my Lyrilusc deck. So without any further ado, let's just jump right into this. So starting off, we are of course playing with our Lyrilusc monsters, and the ratios for these are fairly simple. We're playing 3 copies of Turquoise Warbler, 3 copies of Sapphire Swallow, and 3 copies of Cobalt Sparrow. You're playing all 3 of these monsters at 3 copies of each because of the fact that you really want to see them in your opening hands, because Turquoise Warbler enables your combos. Sapphire Swallow and Cobalt Sparrow work really well together to go ahead and swarm your field and get you searches respectively. So you just really want to see these. They enable so many of your link plays, and you know, if you're going for your XYZs, these are of course the ones that you want to use, because Sapphire Swallow and Cobalt Sparrow both give your Lyrilusc XYZs additional effects. Alright, so that does it for the Lyrilusc monsters. Hopefully one day we'll see more support for them, but for right now we have to run some external engines in order to supplement the main deck. So we're starting off with a DD engine right here. So we're playing 2 copies of DD Savant Kepler and 2 copies of DD Lamia. Now these 2 DD cards are amazing because the fact that Kepler, upon normal summon, essentially gives you 2 bodies on your side of the field, because Kepler can go ahead and search Dark Construct with the Gate, and then Gate can go ahead and search Lamia, and Lamia can send the Gate to the graveyard to special summon herself out from either your hand or your graveyard, and that's actually really important. Lamia being able to special summon herself out from the graveyard actually gives this deck a lot of potential, because the fact that you can use cards like your Nightmares and your other Link monsters to basically discard her from your hand to get some advantages, maybe some extra draws with your Nightmare cards if they're co-linked, and then you can bring your Lamia back out from your graveyard, and you essentially lost no cards whatsoever in that transaction. So it's really nice. So I really like the DD engine. You'd only need 2 copies of each, because the fact that Kepler is really good as an enabler, and he's also searchable by Gate itself, but you don't really want to see too many copies in your hand because of course you're limited by your normal summons, and because things like Nightmare Goblin is now banned, having too many normal summons in your hand is actually bad for this deck. Okay, so the other card that we're typically going to normal summon in this deck is going to be 1 copy of your Kabo. So we're running 2 copies here. Now Kabo is searchable by things like Where Art Thou, same with stuff like your Kepler. Kabo is better to use on your subsequent turns, on like mid to late game, because the fact that it can easily revive cards that are already in your graveyard, that's already set up, right? So if you had Cobalt Sparrow, if you had extra deck monsters as well, maybe your Independent Nightingale or your Thousand Eyes Restrict, after you use Instant Fusion to summon them out, Kabo can continuously bring them back and can reuse their effects over and over, which is really nice. Of course, Kabo can also bring back something like Kepler in your graveyard. If you somehow sent him there, he can go for searches. You can just easily swarm the field with this card. It's just really nice to have. 2 copies is enough, because again, you don't want to open up with this card. It's really good mid to late game, but opening up with it when you don't have any prior graveyard setup kind of sucks. So yeah, 2 copies of this is completely fine. Now we also have some more level 1 monsters that I'm playing. We're playing 3 copies of Jester Comfit, and we're also playing 3 copies of Turbo Booster. Now these cards here allow you to easily swarm the field, and they're pretty versatile actually. They help you link climb when you need them, and they just help you act as additional XYZ materials if you're just going for your standard Lyrilusc OTK plays, which this deck isn't really focused on, but it's an option that you can go for if you find yourself in a pinch. So Jester Comfit and Turbo Booster, fantastic cards. I play them at 3 because I really do want to see them. They're great extenders, and they're also great enablers, because the fact that, you know, if you special summon one of these out, you can make a Link Karibo, and if you happen to draw into Kabo, you can normal summon Kabo, bring this back out from your graveyard, and you essentially have 3 monsters on the field to work with for Link plays, for XYZ plays, whatever you need. They're just fantastic for starting plays and extending them as well. Okay, so next off we have 2 cards that I play as one-ofs because they're really just here as text, but they work really well in this deck. So we're playing 1 copy of Glow Bulb and 1 copy of Dotscaper. So Glow Bulb here allows you to basically summon itself out from the graveyard. Summoning things out from the graveyard is fantastic in a deck like this. Same with Dotscaper. Now Dotscaper also has the effect of, if it's ever banished somehow, this deck doesn't really have an inherent way of banishing this card from your graveyard, but if this card is somehow banished, you can also special summon it back. Doesn't really come up ever, but hey, it's an option. These 2 two cards are actually really great to send off of something like Foolish Burial, or to just, if you draw into them, discard them from your hand from with like your nightmares, and they work really well in terms of helping you combo off. Alright, and to wrap up the monster lineup, we have our hand trap that we're playing in this deck. We're playing 3 copies of Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring. Now, if you don't have Ash Blossom, if you don't want to play Ash Blossom, that's fine. Things like Droll and Lockbird are great. Effect Veiler is also good. Ghost Ogre can also work as well. Now, keep in mind, if you're playing Droll or Effect Veiler or even DD Crow, they do have synergy by being level 1 monsters for this deck, so you can use them as Link material and as XYZ material. But with Ash Blossom, it's just a very generic catch-all type of hand trap, and I like to play it in this deck because it, slows down the opponent. But this deck's very flexible with the hand traps that you can play, right? Even things that would be a meta call, something like a DD Crow, works really well because your Lyrilusc can search it out, can special summon it out from your hand, and all that good stuff. So not only does it act as disruption, it could potentially also act as a combo extender or enabler. Okay, so that does it for the monster cards. Next off, we have the spell cards. So for the spell cards, starting off, we're playing 3 copies of the Searcher, Where Art Thou? Now, Where Art Thou is basically a Rhoda for the deck, but it searches any level 1 monster in your deck, as long as you already control one on your side of the field, which is not hard to do with Lyric Jester Confits, and all this stuff that can just special summon themselves out from your hand. So you could potentially use this search on something like a Kepler, on something like a Kabo, and preserve your normal summon for those cards, which is why I really like Where Art Thou in this deck. Now, also, we're playing 3 copies of Dark Contract with the Gate. Now, we're running 2 Keplers and 2 Lamias, and running 3 Gates, because Gate essentially searches either of the 2, which is fantastic, but also because the fact that, if Kepler searches this card and you already have a Gate, these extra Gates can be used as discard fodder for, like, your Nightmares and things like that. Just a really great way to help you thin out your deck as well. Now, if you got extra copies of this in your hand and you made something like a Saryuja, these are free cards that you can just easily put back into your deck while maintaining all the good cards that you drew into, all your power spells, and maybe your combo extenders in terms of monsters. So that's why I played these, both of these cards at 3. Next off, we have some draw power in this deck, and we're playing 3 copies of Pot of Desires. Now, some of you guys might not like Pot of Desires. I really love it in this deck because of the fact that you just need to see more cards. 5 cards in your opening hand, if you're going first, usually isn't enough to establish a really strong board. Pot of Desires gets you there. Even mid to late game, if you draw into it, you can use it. You can potentially draw into your power spells, or even more combo extenders to help you build your field. Next off, we have 3 copies of Instant Fusion right here. Now, Instant Fusion is one of those power spells that I've been mentioning throughout this video, and Instant Fusion allows you to bring out things like your Independent Nightingale and your Thousand Eyes Restrict, which is really good. Independent Nightingale puts that Winged Beast monster onto your side of the field, so your Sapphire Swallow has something to special summon off of to trigger her effect. Thousand Eyes Restrict is great for breaking your opponent's board, and coupled with Kabo, you can actually suck up 2 monsters. By one, when you summon the Thousand Eyes Restrict, you can take something, then you can link it away with make Link Kariba or something like that. Normal summon your Kabo, bring it back from the graveyard, take another monster. You're just dismantling your opponent's board bit by bit before you even go for your Link plays or your power plays. So I really do love Instant Fusion. It's played at 3 because of the fact that you are playing Desires. So if you banish a copy or 2, it's fine. You only really need one of them to go off, just so that you get that fusion monster into circulation, because again, Kabo can always bring it back. Okay, so next off, we have the kind of little text in the deck. So starting off, we have 2 copies of Called by the Grave. This is, of course, because we're a combo deck. We want to stop our opponent's hand traps that are trying to slow us down. Now, we also have a bunch of Revival. We have 1 copy of Soul Charge, 1 copy of Monster Reborn, 1 copy of World Legacy Succession, and, well, we also have a couple of other texts here. Making some space. Foolish Burial, and 1 for 1. So these are all pretty self-explanatory. Revivals like Soul Charge, Monster Reborn, World Legacy Succession, these 3 cards allow you to extend your board, and it brings back your Link monsters. So this deck really likes to Link climb from their, Link 2 Nightmares up to things like Burl Swords and stuff like that. And being able to revive those Link monsters back from your graveyard offers you board protection, which is really good, especially if you're trying to establish your first turn board. Now, Foolish Burial is great here because of Dotscaper, Glow Up Bulb, you can send Lamias, things like that. You can also send things like Cobalt Sparrow to setup for a Kinkabio search. There are all these little interactions that Foolish Barrel works really well in terms of setting up. Now we also have 1-for-1 right here, and 1-for-1 is, of course, here just to special summon anything you want out of the deck. You get a lot of value if you summon something like a Dotscaper or Glow Bulb, actually, because the fact that you can, summon Glow Bulb out, uses material, and then Glow Bulb comes back, or Dotscaper comes back from the graveyard, and can potentially help you gain pluses while extending your plays. So all of these cards are what I consider the power cards of the deck. Well, maybe not Call by the Grave, that's more of a disruption, but all of these cards here are really great enablers and extenders. So if you draw into these cards, it's fantastic. If you banish them off Desires, it's fine as well, because you probably weren't going to see them anyway. So that's my reasoning behind it. This is a 45 card deck, but it's fairly consistent at pulling off crazy boards. So I think the ratios in here are fine. Alright, so that does it for the main deck. Next off, we're going to go into the extra deck. So for the extra deck, starting off, you're playing, of course, you're playing level 1s, and like your entire deck's level 1s, come on guys. Linkuriboh. Now only play one copy of Linkuriboh because the extra deck space is actually kind of tight. So one copy of Linkuriboh is fine. The other card I play here is Underclock Taker. Now, Underclock Taker, you could play another Linkuriboh here, but I find that Underclock Taker helps you get over larger monsters, which this deck does have some problems doing at times, especially because not all of your Link monsters are going to be super aggressive and have a lot of attack, like things like Boral Sword, so you can't always make those types of Link monsters in situations, so Underclock Taker helps you out some potentially larger beat sticks on your opponent's side of the field, so that's why I play one copy of that. And then we'll also play one copy of Greatfly. Now, this is the card that actually make the least in the extra deck, but it's here just in case you want to go for your Lyrical Lucinia plays. If you do, then Greatfly is fantastic because it gives you extra 500 attack. So for your Assemble Nightingale, which can attack multiple times, if she can attack 2 times, that's double the 500, so it's 1,000. If she can attack 3 times, that's 1,500 extra damage. So it scales really well with your Lyrical Lucinia monsters, which is why it's here. But again, you don't really ever summon this card unless you're in a really sticky situation, but it's there if you need it. Alright, next off we have our Nightmare cards that we are playing. So of course, one copy of Cerberus, one copy of Phoenix, and one copy of Unicorn. Now I really do want to bump Phoenix up to 2. If I really needed to, I could always cut a copy of Greatfly. I just find that Greatfly's utility comes up in like maybe 1 out of 10 duels, so keeping it there to help keep you in those situations where you would have lost, helping keep you in the duel, I think it's worth keeping a slot there. But these Nightmares are just fantastic for their discard effects. I've mentioned them a lot when talking about the main deck, but discarding things from your hand, setting up your graveyard for plays, while popping and dismantling your opponent's board is always fantastic. Alright, so next off we have some of our power Link monsters, the ones that help us establish a really oppressive board against our opponent. So we have one copy of Trigate Wizard. This deck can actually make a triple co-linked Trigate, which is really nice because it just allows you to go ahead, banish stuff for free on your turn, and negate things as well. So it's like a Cyber Dragon Infinity, but in Link form. Now, we also have one copy of Saryuja. Saryuja is really important here because the fact that it enables you to go ahead and draw into your deck. We have pretty easy ways of thinning the deck. We have a lot of consistent ways to search. So Saryuja basically allows you to go ahead and dig for your power spells, think like Soul Charge, Monster Reborn, and things like that. This is one of the cards that you might potentially Link Climb into. So, if you draw into a Soul Charge and you've already used a lot of your Nightmare cards, you can revive them, have them co-linked to your Saryuja, and just pull off a lot of shenanigans from there. Now, the last card that I'm playing here is going to be one copy of Boral Sword Dragon. Not playing Borreload because the fact that Boral Sword allows us to push for a lot of damage, whereas Borreload is more of a utility card. And I think this deck has enough utility in the form of Trigate, in the form of the Lyrical Lucinia XYZs. If your opponent has a massive board, you can just start attacking directly, right? You can ignore their field. But Boral Sword allows you to dismantle your opponent's field through battle, which is why I picked it over something like Borreload. But if you want to play Borreload, you can always find space somehow by cutting a card here or there. But yeah, that does it for all the Link monsters. Next off, we're going to go into the XYZs. So for the XYZs, we're only playing two different XYZs here. We're playing two copies of Lyrilusc Assembled Nightingale, and we're also playing two copies of Lyrilusc Recital Starling. Now these two cards, I just play at 2. The third copy never came up in testing, so I find that these ratios are completely fine. Assembled Nightingale is great for helping you stall, helping you potentially just finish the game off by attacking your opponent directly. And Recital Starling, again, you can crash this into your opponent. That doesn't really come up too often, but you know, the searching effect of this is fantastic, and it puts a Wing Beast type monster into your side of the field. So if you didn't open up with Instant Fusion to, let's say, put Independent Nightingale into your side of the field, you can overlay any 2 level 1s for Recital Starling, search for, you know, Sapphire Swallow. Sapphire Swallow can activate, special summoning itself and another level 1 Wing Beast type monster from your hand, just let you combo off and swarm the field with more monsters to work with. So that's why we have these cards right here. Alright guys, and last but not least, we have our 2 fusions that we have in the deck that we use as instant fusion targets to kind of cheese out and then utilize and abuse with Kabo. So the first one is of course going to be 1 copy of Lyrilusc Independent Nightingale. Fantastic card for this deck because it enables your Sapphire Swallow plays, but also because the fact that it just chips away your opponent's life points little by little. You know, summon it out, deal 500 damage to your opponent, it's not bad, but then over the course of the duel, if Kabo is bringing this back maybe 2-3 times, that's another 1,000, 1,500 damage to your opponent throughout the course of the duel, and it could actually make a big difference in the end. Next off, we're also playing 1 copy of Thousand Eyes Restrict. I mentioned this earlier, and Kabo and this card are just like best friends. Summoning out the Thousand Eyes Restrict, sucking up a card from your opponent, and if you don't want this card to get banished off of Kabo once Kabo returns to the hand or your end phase, just make sure you tribute it off with your Link Karibo, and then it's back in your graveyard. So the next turn you can normal summon the Kabo again, Thousand Eyes Restrict, dismantle your opponent's board. This card is just fantastic utility for the deck. But yeah, I find that both these targets are fantastic. Lyrilusc usually make turn 1, and Thousand Eyes Restrict, if you're going second or any subsequent turns, you'd be prioritizing this. But yeah, that does it for the extra deck, and that does it for the deck profile. So thank you all so much for watching this video. I really do appreciate it. If you enjoyed it or found it helpful, please leave a like, subscribe for more Yu-Gi-Oh content, and leave a comment down below letting me know what I can do to improve. And until next time, take care.